Hi, let's create a new Angular project version 19 and we will walk through the project structure and important files. So to get started, you should have the Angular CLI installed, and if you check the global version, it should be 19. If you want to create some older version, then you need to update your Angular CLI to the required version for that. Okay, so I have Angular CLI version 19 installed. I will create a new project called ng-new, and I will create a to-dos app Angular 19. Okay, I would like to go with a SAS style sheet format approach, and I don't want to have the server-side rendering or static file generation for this app. So I will say no here. It will create the file structure here and try to install the packages. Meanwhile, I can try to open the folder and let's open. Yeah, I do trust. And let's go to the terminal again. It might have interrupted the node module for no, npm install. So let's do the npm install one more time. And we can go through the project structure. So this is very important to understand. When you create a new project, especially Angular 19, there have been some changes compared to the Angular version 12, 14, 16. Let's start with the package.json file. In package.json file, you will find a script command with a start option. So what it does, whenever you say npm start, it will run the ngserve command. Meaning, let me try to fit in here. So this is the new project we created. I will just start the application by command npm start. You can also say ngserve, doesn't matter. And we have the output running on the 4200 port. So let's hit it and we have our output. Okay. So now we have this package.json file where we have the npm start command. Next important file is the angular.json. And this is very important to understand. I will just try to collapse few parts and we will go one by one. So the schema is for Angular CLI. You don't have to change it. Version is also for the CLI. New project root. Here is the project section where it has to be defined. You don't need to worry about it because this is the key here. Okay, so if you rename this one, this should match with this object key. And we have this one project. What does it mean? You can have more than one project defined here. Let's say you have NX or some library project. You would like to have the same, more than one project into the same workspace. But for our simple case, we have only one key here. That is to-do app Angular 19, the name we gave when we created the project. Let's expand it. The first property is project type. And since it is application, the value is application. If you're creating a library project, you can have a library option here. The difference between library and application, you cannot run library into a browser. It just presents you some kind of types or some component that you can import and you can use it into your application. I will just revert it back to my default value to application. There are some schematic, Angular component schematic. If you recall, I set the style sheet option to SAS file. Root key, source root. Source root is the folder name where Angular will try to find all the source code. So src should match with the folder name here. And the prefix, you see prefix here app, that is prefix for any component that you create. For example, in our application, we have a default app component, and here is the app root key. If I go ahead and change it, let me stop it, and I say custom app. Let me save this one, and I will try to generate component, say login. And let's open this login component, and you can see the selector is custom app here. So this is very important if you are working in a project and you have multiple teams and you want to prefix your component with the team name. If not, you can just revert it back to the default values. Next key is architect, and this is where the magic happens. Let me again collapse the keys and we go one by one. When we run application, we say npm start or we say ngserve, right? For this command, Angular CLI will use configuration from architect.serve section. So in the serve, it will decide which builder to use and what configuration to read. Here, there are two configurations defined, production and development. And the default configuration is set to development. So all the configuration you have done for the development will be used during the ngserve. Now, production. If you want to run your ngserve with production, this command will be used. Meaning, if I do now ng serve -c production, bundler will use this object now. And you can define more configuration object properties here. This is for serve, and once your application is ready and you want to deploy it, you want to build it, right? The command for is ng build. What ng build will do is like create a deployment folder for you that you can deploy to any of your favorite deployment server. It can be on-premise, it can be Azure, it can be GCP, AWS, whatever, Vercel. For that, the architect.build section will be used. And here, let's collapse this part. In the build section, there is a build application property. Here are the common options. So first option is the output path. It says dist and the name. Here you can see I have a dist folder here, and there is a, let me make it a little bit bigger. And there is a to-do app Angular 19. If I change it to say www root and I save this one, I build one more time. And let me see. Here is the www root folder created. Okay, so you can control what should be the output path here. Next is the index file. From where to read the index file? It says source.sr. Let me first revert it back to dist. And I will remove this one so that I do not confuse everyone else. Okay, so next file, source index.html. And this source.index.html, our application will bootstrap using this key app root. Okay, so Angular will try to understand, okay, where is my index file and what is the TypeScript file I need to start. So here is the browser main.ts. So these 2 points are gateway for the application. If you notice here, we have this index file where we have the title. So here is the title in browser tag. If I say here, welcome Angular 19, if I save this, I start one more time application, I run, you can see this application in browser, you can see the title is updated. Base ref is default here. Unless you are building a micro front end, you can update this property either in index.html or in angular.json file. And in the body section, you see there is an app root selector. And this app root selector would be from the app component. So in app component, we have this selector app root, and that's how it understands that index file index.html, all the application will start rendering from this tag app root. If I go to the browser, if I make it a little bit bigger here, in the body section, you will see, let me make it a little bit bigger here as well. Here is the app root component output. And you have also small element here. So these are the file, index.html and main.ts. Polyfills is for the backward compatibility and the change detection for zone.js. In the next version, there will be, hopefully soon, we will have a zoneless Angular application. So we won't need any of this zone.js polyfills. Next is the TypeScript configuration. It is defined into app.json file. So here is the ts app.json file, which extend the basic TypeScript configuration. So if your project require any specific TypeScript configuration, like enabling some experimental feature or setting some compiler option, this is a place you can define it. And for application specific, you can define some configuration here as well. Here we are saying that our application file will start with main.ts. So this is the main.ts file we are talking about. Okay, so this is the type of configuration. Inline style language, again, SAS that we selected. Asset. Asset is the folder where you put the images and any media files that you need to render in your application. So the input would be the folder called public. So we should have a folder here called public, and here is a favicon.icon. And this is the icon which is shown in the browser. If you need to replace this, you need to remove this file, put your icon file, go to the angular.json, make sure if this public folder is not same, is something else, make sure the name matches here, and update the path into the index.html here. Okay. Next is styles. So this is the global style file here. You can add a global style, and per component you can have your own style. Normally when you use some kind of libraries like material design or Bootstrap, this is a place where you want to include the mix-ins. So this was the object called options, and next is the configuration. Again, we have here by default two configurations, production and development. However, the default configuration is production here. If you recall, in Angular earlier version, you need to specify ng build -c production, or in earlier Angular 8 version, it would have been like this. But here, you just say ng build, and the production configuration will be used. These are the configuration like budget files. Budget is something that you define what should be the maximum file size, maximum warnings after the file. So if it goes beyond this one, application will not compile, you will get an error. And the source map is something like you can go and check your code into the browser. What else is important here? Extract I18N is for the translation. If you're using Angular translation, this is command used. Otherwise, if you use like ng translate, you don't need to worry about this part. And the test is for running the npm test. Like if you say ng test, the configuration will be read from this object. Here you have the options, polyfill, testing. You have the same configuration, most of the configuration from your other object here. And let me bring it back here. So this is the output of test return. Now, what else? If you go to the folder here now, okay, we see we have package.json covered, angular.json covered. And this is the src folder, index.html, main.ts. From this is the one where applications start. Here we have bootstrap app component, and in app component we have this app root selector, which is passed into the index.html. So that is how applications start. If I change this to incorrect selector, and let me stop this one, and I say npm start, let's see what happens. Let me clean, and as you can see, we do not have any output. In the console, you can see the app root incorrect did not match any element, because here we are saying app root, and here we change it to app root incorrect. So if I replace it here, and now if I refresh, I should get the output. So these are the important things you need to understand when you have the empty project and the folder structure. Last point is like this Angular folder. This .angular is the ignored folder that shouldn't go into your source control. And this is used by the Angular CLI for the faster compilation. There is a cache, and Angular CLI uses it, so you don't have to compile whole application. It detects what has changed and incrementally it uses it. I think that should be it for this video. We will go through different topics in the next videos. Thank you.